no good in the long run. Most importantly, Ritalin is now proven to stunt growth, cause heart, stress, and weight problems, along with a growing number of severe psychiatric disorders.
In the U.S., there have been 51 deaths among children and adults taking Ritalin since 1999. 11 British children have died. Both American and British experts fear that deadly psychotropic drugs are not only being used to control children's behavior, but are being massively overprescribed to children who are just plain naughty. In the U.S., 1 in 10 children is on Ritalin, and doctors write 2 million prescriptions a month for the drug.
Well, for the first time since they were invented, metal detectors have been selling out in the U.S., and in Florida, there's a month-long waiting list to get one. Jacksonville, Florida beachgoer Faye Powell said she's been using a metal detector to search for gold items that now sell for $1,000 an ounce. Of course, the beach is the perfect place for treasure hunters because so many people lose jewelry in the sand after removing rings and necklaces to apply suntan lotion or to go for a swim.
News reports all over Florida say piles of gold, jewelry, and coins, including a few gold Spanish doubloons, have been pouring into beachside pawn shops in recent weeks. And to the hundreds of out there TV viewers who took our nagging advice 5 years ago to buy large amounts of gold, we imagine you're pretty happy campers now.
European Union Foreign Policy Chief Javier Solana is warning that the European Union needs to beef up its military capabilities because of potential uprising caused by climate changes. Out-of-control drought and fungi are expected to create huge crop shortages in Africa, the Middle East, which in turn would affect the stability of that vitally strategic region.
Water shortages in Israel are also of growing concern. And while global warming seems to be a misnomer for climate change, European leaders are warning of sea level rises, along with the intensity and frequency of natural disasters, which could lead to millions of displaced people. New World Order investigators are also concerned as food and water shortages, whether natural or artificially induced, could be the perfect excuse for the implementation of martial law worldwide.
Finally, tonight, a Berkeley watchdog organization that tracks military spending says it's uncovered a very strange military proposal. The plan to create a hormone bomb that could turn enemy soldiers into homosexuals and make them more interested in sex than fighting the enemy.
Edward Hammond of Berkeley used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain a copy of the military's $10 million gay bomb proposal from the Air Force's Wright Lab in Dayton, Ohio. As part of a military effort to develop non-lethal weapons, the proposal states an effective non-lethal weapon would be strong aphrodisiacs, especially if the chemical caused instant homosexual behavior.
This is too funny. Gay community leaders in California said they found the notion of a gay bomb both offensive and laughable at the same time, especially when you consider that American soldiers and military commanders would also be exposed to the aerosol aphrodisiac.
You gotta wonder who comes up with these ideas.
Can't you see it now? Like 300,000 soldiers instantly with limp wrists.
Stop it.
Hey, when we come back, the guy that's our Matrix expert and an Illuminati historian, Alan Watt, joins us on the program.
Alan Watt has spent decades researching the way cultures are created and altered by those in control. Born in Scotland, he watched as the politicians and media covertly guided the population into a European amalgamation.
Now, living in Canada, Alan is warning that the same process is being used to force our populations into a North American union without our consent and without full disclosure.
Welcome, Alan.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. Now, Alan, one of the things that I liked, we just watched your video a couple of days ago, and you talk about the hive mentality, how we worker bees basically work our tails off building things for the royal class. How did that happen?
It's in modern and ancient religions, they used to use the symbol of the beehive as a perfect society. where you had the queen at the top, the royalty, and all the workers beneath them that did all the work, of course, with a priestly class or drones kind of managing the food, etc. Right down to deciding which ones would get royal jelly and which ones would become worker bees according to how they were fed. And we find all of these techniques being used today. The word hive, the term, is being used by big think tanks and institutions to describe the modern society they're bringing into being. It's not here totally yet. We see it all emerging around us, this new, it's really a scientific dictatorship, as Aldous Huxley described it, and it's to be run by professionals and experts, and the public are to be given a new type of government. Really, they call it governance as opposed to government.
Alan, who do you think is responsible for this one big world government?
It's an amalgamation of very old societies. We find that in the 1800s, for instance, out of Britain, you had societies that were given royal charters to create a new system. Part of the system to be to take over all natural resources of the planet. And one of those societies was the Cecil Rhodes Foundation that eventually blossomed into the Royal Institute for International Affairs. And it's got branches across the planet. Most of your media, your regular media, are members. You have to be invited to become a member. And journalists, newspaper owners, and the Council on Foreign Relations is their main one in the U.S. Now, in the United States, the Council on Foreign Relations came out on national television in Canada in 2005 as their own organization for the first time, and they admitted that they had basically drafted up the drafts to be signed by presidents and prime ministers for the amalgamation of the Americas. Now, they are classed officially as a non-governmental, non-political body, and here they are drafting up legislation which they hand to every government that then signs it into law. So we're not run by any kind of democracy by any means or any stretch of the imagination. We are already, and we have been for a long time, run by this super government, this parallel government, as Professor Carroll Quigley called it in his book Tragedy and Hope. It's made up of the big institutions like the Royal Institute for International Affairs, Council on Foreign Relations, the RAND Corporation with think tanks, many other think tanks, big foundations like the Rockefellers, etc., contribute to it not just financially, but by using their own think tanks and networking together to bring this new world order. I mean, we've got to understand that even David Rockefeller hands out World Citizenship Awards. He's been handing them out for about almost 20 years now. Well, how can they be doing World Citizen Awards if we're still supposedly sovereign nations? There's a dilemma here, and it's never explained to the public. The fact is, since the United Nations was set up and signed in 1945-46, we have been part of a global system, and any country since